Well, let's get into this conversation now and more on what residents wish the president could address in the city of Johannesburg. And we speak to Joburg Crisis Alliance's steering committee member, Mark Heywood. Mark, good evening to you and thank you for your time. I think let's first set the scene in this way. The president apparently making a nighttime visit to Johannesburg, where the understanding is that he would have been flanked by the Johannesburg Metro Police Chief, and the police chief then proceeded to post pictures of the president, as I suppose he did his roundabouts in the city. What do you make of that nighttime visit? Because it's received some criticism.
Good evening again. I think the criticism is well deserved. What we don't need, well, let me first say, Collie, that we welcome the visit of President Ramaphosa to the city of Johannesburg. It is long overdue. We hope that he will get a proper opportunity to see the city, and we hope that his visit will actually make a difference in rescuing this city of gold, from a situation of terminal decline and huge problems for those of us who live in it, to a city that we can be proud of, that can play its role in South Africa and in Africa. The problem with surreptitious or not so surreptitious nighttime visits is, one, at night you can't see much, and secondly, if you are being escorted by blue lights, you're probably being taken to the wrong parts of the city. I wish that the president would come here incognito, if that is possible, and I don't believe it's impossible, and ask a group of residents to give him a comprehensive tour of the city, both the parts of the city which we can still be proud of and which still work, but more importantly, the many parts of the city which are very, very badly broken and are in collapse and free fall. And I wish that he would create the space to sit down with the residents of the city and hear the perspectives of the residents of the city, not just the complaints, but the ideas and the solutions. But Collie, the problem is the president won't see Johannesburg, even though he's coming here, because he's going to be behind blue lights all of the time. And secondly, he won't hear the voices, because when he does meet with the Johannesburg Crisis Alliance and a few others on Friday afternoon, we've been given the grand total of 1 hour to share in order to speak to the president. So I think he needs to take that into account. And if I was President Ramaphosa, I would ask the ANC officials to change his itinerary so that he can get a real sense of what is at stake in this city.
Mark, you've used an expression which I suspect sums up what Johannesburg, the real Johannesburg, looks like. And you said he's going to see a city that is in terminal decline. If he were to be shown the real Johannesburg, are you able to spell out just some of the things that are terribly wrong with Johannesburg right now?
Yes. If I was escorting President Ramaphosa to the real Johannesburg, I'd take him down the whole road of Louis Botha from Hillbrow to Alexandra and show him the still incomplete Rea Vaya, where that road was dug up, the stations incomplete, the impact that has had on the local economy. If I was taking President Ramaphosa, I would invite him into the now abandoned Metropolitan Center in Braamfontein, which the City Council has literally abandoned, leaving documents, leaving equipment, leaving vital historical records. If I was President Ramaphosa, I would take him to Kliptown to see where, in that historic place of the Freedom Charter, people still live without water and without sanitation, where this evening as we speak, there are floods. I would show him Freedom Square, dedicated to Walter Sisulu, which has been broken and dismantled by neglect. I would take him to the closed Johannesburg Library. I would take him to Primrose and Germiston to look at the state of those communities. And I would say to him, apart from the impact that this has on the residents, on our dignity, on our functionality, what is the impact on the economy of this country? You know, you talk about aligning to national priorities. Well, if your national priority is creating jobs, if your economic hub is broken, then that is going to undermine your efforts to create livelihoods and jobs. And I would take him to many, many more places, and then maybe he would really understand what is happening.
Yeah. And one of those, Mark Heywood, it's a personal wish. It is for the president to go to Emfuleni. Raw sewage is understood to be flowing into people's homes. And I was once there in the lead up to the elections last year. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But let's move along and talk about what is realistically fixable, if there is such a term. What is it that can be fixed in order for the city to receive international guests, as we are going to receive them throughout the course of this year?
Well, the Johannesburg Crisis Alliance, and you may be surprised to hear this, believes that if there was political will and if there was resources and if the citizens were properly consulted, there is much that we could do, and we could probably do it quite quickly, and we could probably turn this city around. But the problem is the Johannesburg City Council doesn't talk to the citizens. The Johannesburg Crisis Alliance has been requesting a meeting with the new mayor. Well, he's not new anymore, for as long as he's been the mayor, with Mayor Morero. No response. You know, where there's political will, and we've seen it in the last few days, in this accidental comment by the mayor that they're going to fix up the roads which the G20 delegates will travel along. Well, you'll see that when they see that there's a reason, then they can make things happen. But when the reason is the will of the citizens, then nothing actually happens. You know, the reason why the Johannesburg Library may be opened in April is because of citizen pressure. That is what has to happen. But, you know, unless President Ramaphosa does more than just pay lip service to the problem, but actually insists that the ANC in Johannesburg, the Johannesburg region of the ANC, also be put under administration, unless he insists that the Gauteng province is seen to deliver, because the Gauteng province has a big responsibility for many of the failures in Johannesburg, then the danger is that this is just another exercise in politics that makes very, very little difference. I guess the thing I'm saying to you is, Collie, we can be proud of this city. I mean, this city is an amazing city. It has got so much going for it. There is so much will, there's so much desire amongst the citizens to fix it. But there is a gulf between the people and the elites, the corrupt politicians who are running it on a day-to-day basis. And that's not the Johannesburg Crisis Alliance saying that. Look at the Auditor General's report from January of this year if you want to see what her findings were.
Yeah. Mark, finally and briefly, if you can, you make the statement that you wish the Johannesburg executive can be put under administration, much as in the ANC at Johannesburg executive, much the same way as the provincial executive of the ANC is now effectively under administration. Do you think at a provincial level, the officials there understand why what has happened at ANC level has happened, and perhaps they're willing to eat humble pie and be clear that they will serve the people now?
There's no evidence that they're willing to eat humble pie. They think that they're doing very well. They think that they're being maligned by civil society organizations, and their interest is not the citizens, to be honest with you. Their interest is how much money they can get out of the city before they may lose office in 2026. And again, I say that to you not as an exaggeration. I say it on the basis of knowledge, of talking to whistleblowers. You know, we talk about city capture. of Johannesburg, Goli, because it's the same type of thing. Departments are captured because of the amount of money that they can yield to individuals and sometimes to the coffers of the ANC in order to try to perpetuate the ANC's rule. And that ANC's rule, and it applies to some of the other parties as well, is not in the interests of Johannesburg. It's a self-interested rule, and it has to change.
Mark Heywood, thank you very much for your time as always, and perhaps if you want a continuation of this discussion, look no further than the discussion we're going to have with Jeff Radebe. That's in the next hour. Mark Heywood is with the Joburg Crisis